is a protest. Pride has always been a protest.
I was 22 years old at the time of the Stonewall Uprising. We could not even hold hands in public, let alone consider getting married.
We were out loud and proud of who we were. In 1970, that was unusual.
I think it's very relevant to look back in history and to see, queer people have always been here.
Hello, I'm Steve Lacey.
And I'm Natasha Verma. Fox 5 is celebrating Pride. First recognized on a federal level in 1999, Pride has served as a time to celebrate the LGBTQ plus pioneers who fought for equality through art, culture, action, and community service.
And this year's Pride theme is strength and solidarity, from the progress made to the challenges yet to overcome. Chris Welch shows us, with pain comes purpose.
It can be easy to think of Pride as merely a celebration.
I'm very excited.
With the cheering crowds, the colorful costumes and rainbow flags, it is a festive atmosphere. But advocates say that doesn't mean we should forget what Pride is truly about.
Pride is a protest. Pride has always been a protest.
Catherine Oakley with the Human Rights Campaign, or HRC, is talking about Pride's roots, which go back to 1969. That's when police raided a bar that was serving drinks to gay people, a common practice back then, except this time the patrons fought back. What followed was 6 days of protests and violent clashes known as the Stonewall Riots. It's why the Stonewall Inn in New York's West Village is to this day seen as the literal and figurative epicenter of Pride festivities the world over. And this year, advocates are trying to tap into that same fighting spirit.
I think that Pride has never been more important.
Because Oakley says gay rights are under attack more than they've been in years.
This is a crisis. It is an emergency. We need all hands on deck.
Believe it or not, public support for members of the LGBTQ plus community has never been higher. But if you look at the state laws being passed around the country, you'd think the opposite.
State legislatures are taking a hard turn the other direction. And what they're doing is, unfortunately, passing law after law after law that is making it increasingly untenable to be an LGBTQ person.
According to the Human Rights Campaign, there's been more legislation passed targeting LGBTQ plus individuals in 2023 than there was in the 5 years prior combined.
So it has been a really tremendously terrible year.
So far this year, more than 520 anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced in state legislatures. 70 have gone into law. Tennessee has led the way, passing 19 such laws since 2015. One of its laws, though, banning drag shows, ruled unconstitutional just this month. But a new law set to take effect July 1st would ban gender-affirming care for trans individuals.
I am a trans person, and I am terrified.
Story Van Ness is a trans rights advocate in Tennessee.
We should all be afraid. This is a litmus test. The GOP trying to eradicate trans people is a test to see what they can get away with.
In Montana, the Republican-controlled legislature voted to bar trans lawmaker Zoe Zephyr from the House floor, forcing her to conduct the rest of the session's business sitting in the hallway, all because she gave a speech saying lawmakers who supported the bill would have blood on their hands. That's a reference to the high suicide rate among trans youth.
I rose up in defense of my community that day, speaking to harms that these bills bring and that I have firsthand experience knowing about. So when I rose up and said, there is blood on your hands, I was not being hyperbolic.
Even in New York, where no such laws have been introduced, residents are still feeling the effects.
To me, it's a dangerous place to live, and it does not feel safe.
MJ Carger of Westchester is talking about Florida, a state she once considered retiring in, but not anymore. All because she has a gay son, and Florida, this year alone, enacted 6 anti-LGBTQ laws.
There are other places in the world that I will not travel with him because I know how unsafe. And honestly, that's what Florida feels like right now. It's really unsafe to be an out gay person.
One of the state's newer laws curtails access to gender-affirming care for adults and bans it outright for minors.
I feel like a zombie right now because I don't have any hormones in my body.
Orlando resident Sage Chelf is trans and is now turning to crowdfunding, trying to raise enough money to move to another state.
I just really wish people would stop making it such a political thing and just letting us live.
Folks across the country in these states are taking very seriously the idea that they're not going to be able to remain in these places, or that if they do, that they're putting their safety at risk.
But in the midst of the record-breaking number of anti-LGBTQ legislation, there has been progress in other areas. This month, Alex Newell and J. Harrison G. became the first non-binary actors to ever win Tony Awards. The city of San Francisco has appointed its first ever drag laureate. And small-town Grand Haven, Michigan held its first ever Pride. Officials expected a few hundred to turn out, but they were shocked when 4,000 took part.
I can't even believe, I'm sitting here looking at all of you. You're beautiful, you're wonderful, and I love you.
And it's moments like these that give advocates hope in the midst of hardship.
While I feel really scared about the legal developments, the legislative developments of this year and what I fear will come in the future, I also know with certainty that this is a community that refuses to be defeated.
Coming up.
The major effort today is to change the social institutions that make life difficult for us.
The movement that changed history.
We were out loud and proud of who we were. In 1970, that was unusual.
Plus,
there was loud applause and big smiles after Mayor Koch signed the gay rights bill into law.
Our cameras are there to capture this key moment for gay rights almost 4 decades ago and later.
The intention is to welcome people in to have the conversation. So part of it is, how are we talking about gender differently?
When this Fox 5 special, Pride, returns.
Welcome back. On June 28th, 1970, on the 1-year anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising, the first Pride marches were held in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago.
Thousands of LGBTQ+ people gathered to commemorate and demonstrate. Sharon Crowley spoke with 2 people who were there as history unfolded.
Having to lie, I feel, is the saddest and the ugliest part of being a homosexual. When you have your first bad love experience, for instance, and you can't go to your brother or your sister and say, I'm hurting.
You're watching a documentary that captures the first gay liberation march in New York City on June 28, 1970.
And I've just rejected the mold, and when I rejected the mold, I was happier.
Those first demonstrators left Greenwich Village. Block by block, the group grew larger, ultimately making it to Central Park.
There had never been such a large group of LGBT people to leave the village and march across town all the way to Central Park, 50 blocks long, to show visibility and that we were out loud and proud of who we were. In 1970, that was unusual.
Mark Siegel is a pioneer of the gay rights movement, and in 1970, he was the Grand Marshal of that very first march.
And I got chills down my back. And had a feeling of joy to realize that we had really, in this first year between Stonewall and Gay Pride, created a really existing LGBT movement.
There is a lot for the LGBTQ community to celebrate.
Activist and author Carla Jay was just 22 years old in 1970. She remembers the beginning of the movement like it was yesterday.
I was 22 years old at the time of the Stonewall Uprising. We could not even hold hands in public, let alone consider getting married.
But I think it was the showing that we'll really make it.
Creating real change, they say, takes persistence and patience, and it appears to have paid off. In the 50-plus years since that first Pride Parade here in New York City, participation has grown in size from thousands to millions, making it one of the largest Pride parades in the world.
As we reflect on the fight for equality, Fox 5 was there for a landmark moment in the gay rights movement.
In 1986, it became illegal to discriminate against gays right here in New York City.
Rosanna Scotto captured the moment in time with this report she filed more than 3 decades ago.
There was loud applause and big smiles after Mayor Koch signed the gay rights bill into law, a law which makes it a crime to discriminate based on sexual orientation. Before the mayor put his stamp of approval on the measure, he heard last-minute lobbying for and against the bill. And then His Honor had the last words before he took his pen in hand.
This legislation simply says that people with that lifestyle have rights. And you don't have to love them, but you have to respect their rights.
We're happy. This is a joyous occasion, and we don't need a whole mess of people to fight with the hundreds of people that are coming here to fight against us.
But while the struggle for the bill's passage is over, the fight against it is not. Hundreds of men, women, and young children from Hispanic communities all over the city chanted, waved Bibles, held posters, and vowed to get even with the mayor for supporting the bill.
We will take as a city and as people and as voters of this city. Let me tell you, we could get Mayor Koch out of there. We could get Mayor Koch out of there.
The protesters gathered outside City Hall. The leader of this congregation also blamed Governor Cuomo for the bill's victory and promised to put pressure on him when he runs for re-election this November. But Councilman Noah Deer plans on taking more immediate steps.
First, I'm going to be introducing different kind of amendments which will water down the bill. And second of all, I'm going to seek to go to court to challenge this bill.
Outside City Hall, Rosanna Scotto for Channel 5 News.
Still ahead, change makers, innovators, and trailblazers.
No matter how historical LGBTQ people were treated, they never let people define them. They made their own course, they made their own path.
The most prominent figures in the LGBTQ plus community and how they've helped change the world.
A health facility is lending a helping hand to the LGBTQ plus population on Long Island.
The Edie Windsor Healthcare Center is named after the gay rights activist instrumental in the landmark legal victory for same-sex marriage here in the U.S.
Fox 5's Jody Goldberg shows the need and importance of the services they provide.
Sobering statistics among the LGBTQ plus community in Nassau and Suffolk counties. A first-of-its-kind survey found that many individuals who identify as queer are struggling with high rates of depression and other mental health issues.
Over 70% were struggling with things like anxiety, large amounts of people struggling with depression and even thoughts of self-harm. And yet, even despite these high numbers, only a little over a third of individuals had actually sought out care.
Care is sometimes complicated. Many experience disparities and discrimination. Dr. Allison Elliskew, principal investigator of the study, emphasizes that some in the community are at higher risk because of how they're stigmatized.
67%, that's two-thirds of individuals, have been verbally harassed based on their gender or their sexual orientation.
Stony Brook Medicine's Edie Windsor Healthcare Center in Hampton Bays is one place that provides inclusive, gender-affirming care for the LGBTQ plus community. The facility named in honor of Edie Windsor, a pioneer who paved the path for gay marriage.
She was a trailblazer in the 70s and the 80s and throughout her entire life.
Windsor was an advocate and supporter of the LGBT network. CEO Robert Vitelli says she was honored at their 20th anniversary gala and helped open their center in the Hamptons. And when it comes to seeking health care, a facility like this one is needed now more than ever.
The misgendering, the assumption of different gender of someone's significant other creates a backdrop and creates an environment that LGBT people don't feel safe. And when an LGBT person doesn't feel safe, they don't want to be there.
Whether it's at an Edie Windsor Center or at any other provider, it's really important that they feel that they are able to connect with their provider, talk about the needs and issues that are really real to them and going on in their lives.
Pride is a time for celebration and acceptance, but it's also a time to honor the people who have paved the way for others.
Fox 5 partnered up with The Advocate magazine for a look at the contributions from some in the LGBTQ+ community and how they've shaped the course of history.
Teresa Briello with some of the men and women who've changed the world.
They are artists, they are scholars, they are scientists and mathematicians from all corners of the world and all walks of life.
If we add in who they are, how they identify, it not only shows that there was representation of our community decades ago, centuries ago, millennia ago, it also shows that our individuality shapes and weaves the human tapestry of our civilization.
You can see slight oscillations in the arm.
Their contributions to society, leaving a footnote in a remarkable life. A great example, Alexander the Great, one of the greatest military commanders to ever live. Like many ancient men of stature, Alexander the Great's sexuality has been examined posthumously by historians. Similar to Leonardo da Vinci, his letters and writings tell the story of a genius. Another, Michelangelo, who made the male physique, or at least David's body, universally admired.
I think it's very relevant to look back in history and to see, queer people have always been here, trans people have always been here. And even in these times in situations where maybe they weren't accepted at all, they still were true to who they were and did great things in their life.
The first American woman in space, Sally Ride, came out not in orbit, but in her obit.
Run voltages through those letters through the backgrounders.
And then there's Alan Turing, immortalized in the movie The Imitation Game. Turing was the world's most famous codebreaker, who helped the Brits gain the upper hand during World War II. A mathematical genius, the inventor of the early computer, and also a man who was imprisoned for gross indecency, for living a homosexual life. In 2013, he was posthumously pardoned by the Queen and hailed as an exceptional man.
Especially in Pride Month, we try to remind the people in the community that have come before us and that have been brave to be themselves, despite what the status quo was at the time.
All around us, everywhere we look, there are people working to change the world, and some actually do.
And the most important part, especially when it comes to LGBTQ representation, is that no matter how people treat you, and no matter how historical LGBTQ people were treated, they never let people define them. They made their own course, they made their own path, and they left their mark on the world.
Next.
Gardens, I think, can be incredibly healing places. I find plants are amazing teachers.
A new garden growing from the roots of history and the safe space it's creating in our area. When this Fox 5 special, Pride, comes right back.
A museum dedicated to a woman, a pioneer in the Victorian era, is now home to a garden designed to be a space for LGBTQ+ youth.
Alice Austin was a photographer who identified as a lesbian. Richard Giacobis takes us to Staten Island to learn about how her legacy continues to help the queer community.
So I like to make a mound like this.
Against the backdrop of the pride flag waving over the Hudson River sits a garden that is proudly blooming. The maroon striped flowers, the juicy red strawberries, the fungi, and even the mugwort make up the brand new queer garden now on display behind the Alice Austin House Museum on Staten Island.
Should be fruiting in about a month and a half, I would say.
Alice Austin was a photographer. Her escape and true love was gardening. It's how she found acceptance.
She was really quite a rebel who broke boundaries for Victorian women.
The colorful display of plant pride was created to ensure LGBTQ youth have a safe space when amongst their peers and learn about gardening.
The intention is to welcome people in to have the conversation. So part of it is how are we talking about gender differently and thinking about the spectrum of gender and sexuality as something that's more than a binary.
The New York Restoration Project, a nonprofit known for its numerous green spaces in all 5 boroughs, helped with the Queer Gardens installation. But this project was extra special for those involved.
We're very excited to be a part of a space that is, creating a safe environment for anyone who wants to come and enjoy it.
Gardens, I think, can be incredibly healing places. I find plants are amazing teachers.
There's been a lot of progress made since the early days of the gay rights movement, but there is still a long road ahead.
Meanwhile, there are a lot of events this weekend. They all culminate with the New York City Pride March.
That's right. That kicks off Sunday at noon. Until next time, I'm Steve Lacey.
And I'm Natasha Verma. Happy Pride.